Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here for our Toolkit Tuesdays, and we are welcoming Laura Allen from Google, and she is going to be speaking about Chromebooks today. Laura is the Senior Program Manager of Accessibility at Google and very talented, and I'm just really pleased that she's agreed to be here. So Laura, I'm going to let you take it away and go from there because we only have an hour. Oh, and let me mention that we have a chat box and a Q&A, and if you have questions or something you want to present in the chat, please go ahead and do so. I'm going to be monitoring that this entire time so that she doesn't have to worry about that. So she can just, do her thing. And we will take the last 10 to 15 minutes to answer any questions. And if we can't answer all the questions, we can send them out later. So with that, Laura.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for the kind intro, Jessica. Very happy to be here with you all. So let me just go ahead and, oh, it looks like I'm not able to share my screen yet. Now, let me try. Okay, there we go. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. If at any point it stops sharing for some reason, just feel free to let me know. So yes, as Jessica mentioned, my name is Laura Allen, and I'm a senior program manager working on Chrome and Chrome OS accessibility at Google. And let me quickly just get rid of that. Okay. So today, mostly going to be talking about Chromebook accessibility features, the different assistive technology tools that are built into Chromebooks. Then we'll also dive into some additional extensions you can add to further customize experience for students. And then I'll share a few anecdotes that I've collected over the years from different teachers and special educators just about how they're using G Suite apps like Google Docs and Google Slides for students with diverse learning needs. And then we'll wrap up with some resources of where to learn more and how to reach out to the team. And I'd love to take questions. So of course, I think all of us here are bought into why accessibility matters, but of course we understand that 15% of the population has some form of a disability. I feel like I'm most likely preaching to the choir here, so I won't go into too much detail, but of course, this massive population with varying needs across vision, hearing, motor, and cognitive. And there are 93 million children worldwide with a disability or a diverse learning need. In the US alone, 1 in 5 school-age children have some form of special need. And we really firmly believe that access or the lack thereof can completely shift someone's entire trajectory in their path to a career, to employment, and to so much more in terms of achieving their dreams. And this is something that I firmly believe in. I have a rare visual impairment that came about when I was 10 in one eye and when I was 14 in another, and it really shifted how I was able to participate in school and the accessibility of my materials. And it was a complete scramble for a long time trying to figure out that right mix of assistive technology to really be able to regain my independence. But then once I was able to find that pattern, everything changed. And I was able to stop relying on my parents and my brother to read to me aloud after school and, having completely just a completely different path at that point. Once I found the use of text-to-speech software plus magnification plus high contrast and all the things that kind of came together to make my world accessible. So I firmly believe that technology can be one of the things that can really help to close the gaps and level the playing fields. And it also comes down to just spreading awareness about the technology and helping to empower the teachers and the trainers of how do we really find those solutions for each individual student. So already this is a quote that was mentioned just about inclusion and about assistive technology, but this is something that we think about a lot on the Chromebook team, just with the introduction of so much more technology in the classroom today, and with Chromebooks being so heavily used in classrooms across the US and beyond. We know that, for me back then when I was in school, I was the only person in the classroom with a computer. I had a high intensity lamp on my desk in math classes, and it was incredibly alienating. Like, everybody knew that there was something different about me. But now with Chromebooks and technology in the classroom, the devices are the things that kind of bring everybody together. It aligns everybody. Everyone's using the devices, and it doesn't matter if you need to customize and leverage different features or assistive technology tools. The device is the device, and you can use it however it works best for you. So it's no longer an alienating tool. It's just hopefully an empowering tool. So on the Chromebook team, we work on building out lots of different assistive technology tools built into accessibility settings in the Chromebook. And I'm going to go through a number of these now that are broken out into different categories. So the first category is around making things easier to see. And there are a number of different ways to increase the size of content on the screen. So the first way, and probably the most simple and straightforward way, is by increasing the size of browser content. So this is just done through pressing Control and the plus key, or Control minus to decrease. You can also reset back to the default zoom level by pressing Control plus 0 at any time. And here you'll notice, like, it's only that browser content, nothing else on the screen is being affected when you do this. But for many folks, that's not going to be large enough. And did I stop presenting? Sorry, Zoom just popped up for me. So everything's still good? Is my screen still showing?
Screen is, but the Zoom is over.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't lose you. All right, so for many individuals, that's not going to be enough, and they're going to want to make everything on the screen larger. So to do this, you can add Shift into the mix. So Control Shift plus will make everything larger, including the tab strip, the Chrome tab strip, or the icons at the bottom of the screen, which we call the shelf of all of your most accessed app icons. So this will make everything larger, and then you can press Control Shift. Oh, I'm sorry, it had advanced on this. There we go. That's the correct slide. So you can add Control Shift minus to decrease. And then again, to get back to the default level of the display size, it's Control Shift 0 at any time. So far that was just the browser zoom and increasing the size of all items. But again, for anyone who's more significantly low vision, may need to increase the content even larger. So we have two magnifiers built in to accessibility settings. And the first one is a full screen magnifier. And the way that the full screen magnifier works is that basically once it's turned on, either through accessibility settings or through pressing the keyboard shortcut Control Search M is a magnifier, the whole screen zooms in. And then you can use your mouse cursor to pan around and control whatever's being seen in the magnified viewport. If you're on a touchscreen Chromebook, you can also use 2 fingers on the touchscreen and scroll around if you prefer that. So the full screen magnifier can be adjusted all the way up to 20 times the default size. And you can adjust the size of the level of zoom in a few different ways. There's a drop down that appears in accessibility settings. You can also you can hold down Control and Alt and scroll 2 fingers up or down on the touchpad. And that's a nice way just to be able to really try out all the different ranges at once, see what works best for you, and then kind of settle on it without having to go back into settings. If you're working with someone who doesn't have the dexterity to be able to use that touchpad in that way, you can also hold down Control and Alt and press the brightness up key to increase or the brightness down key to decrease. And those keys are just located at the top center of the Chromebook keyboard. So that's the full screen magnifier. We have collected a lot of user feedback just about magnification as a whole over the years. And we know that a lot of people, especially those who are using really high levels of zoom, sometimes can experience like a lot of eye strain, and sometimes even people report nausea just from a lot of panning around the screen with lots of motion. So we also have what we call a docked magnifier. Oh, why is this? I apologize, that's not allowing me to access on this account right now. But the docked magnifier is essentially it magnifies the top 1/3 of the screen. And basically the top 1/3 becomes a magnified viewport. And then everything else resizes to fit into the bottom 2/3 of the screen. So in this case, you can use your mouse cursor to navigate around the bottom 2/3 of the screen, control whatever is being displayed in that magnified viewport. You can also adjust the zoom level all the way up to 20 times the zoom in that region as well. So all the same sort of functionality goes in terms of navigation. It's only that top third of the screen that's magnified instead of the full screen. So there is a keyboard shortcut to toggle this as well, Control Search D as in docked, or you can, of course, adjust through accessibility settings. So we also have an adjustable mouse cursor, and when you turn this on, a sliding scale appears in settings. You can find the right size that works best for you. And we do have a sneak preview that we will be coming out with something new in the next few months, where we'll have the ability to change the cursor color. So we're excited about that, and we've gotten some good early feedback from teachers just about students who are excited to kind of customize that cursor color and make it a little bit more fun, as well as a little bit higher visibility. We also have a feature called Highlights, which will help to draw greater visibility on the screen for some of the most important items. So you can turn this on for drawing a colored ring around the mouse cursor as it moves, the keyboard focused item as you type, the caret as you type, or the keyboard focused item as you navigate around. So for example, if you're using the tab key to navigate through a screen with keyboard only, this will actually draw a brighter focus ring around whatever your keyboard focus has. So we're hearing that this of course, we built this feature intended to have greater visibility on these key items, especially when they're in motion. So as you move your mouse around, the circle appears, and then as you stop your mouse, the circle disappears. Same as you type, you might be seeing here in this GIF, it's there when you type, and then it fades into the background. So the idea is not to draw additional clutter to the screen, but just to help to create that extra visibility for our low vision users. But we're also hearing from a lot of schools that many students, perhaps some who have a little bit more trouble focusing, they actually are liking to use this just to keep their attention on the given items that they need to be working on. So that is our highlight feature. We have a high contrast mode. This is one that I use every day, and I'm frequently toggling based on what content I'm looking at. This just helps to invert the colors, and it's helpful to have a really fast toggle to turn this on or off through Control Search H as in high contrast. This one can be really useful for anyone like me who's highly light sensitive. I just really benefit from being able to quickly toggle. We're also hearing that a lot of individuals, now that we have so much more time on screens each day during the pandemic, a lot of eye strain is happening, and we're constantly looking at really bright screens. So sometimes inverting those colors can just be a general help for a lot of different people. Okay, so next, some features for improved motor interaction. So we've got dictation into any text field, and this is just a really simple way. Basically, when you turn this feature on, you're able to, there's a microphone icon that appears in the lower right corner of the screen near where your battery and your system menu live. And you can use this anytime you enter your cursor into a text field. You can press that icon or press Search+D if you'd rather use the keyboard, and use your voice to input text. So this can be used across the board in any text fields. We often hear a lot of really positive feedback about some of the Google Docs voice typing. And of course, that's not specific to Chromebook, but it's built into Google Docs. So definitely want to mention that, as you know, we've gotten a lot of questions about, oh, when is the voice typing coming to Google Slides? So when can my students type with their voice into the slide content? And while the voice typing only exists in slide speaker notes right now from the Google Slides version, I just wanted to mention you can use this Chromebook dictation feature anywhere. So you could certainly use this to dictate text into a slide or any other edit field. We also have an on-screen keyboard, and this is available, again, all these are available through accessibility settings, but when you turn it on, essentially anytime you put your cursor into an edit field, whether you're going to be typing a URL in the address bar or typing a search or an email, this will appear in the lower portion of the screen. And basically, this can be used, of course, with touch if you've got a touchscreen Chromebook, but more so with the touchpad or a connected mouse or joystick to be able to type if it's not possible to type with a physical keyboard. So there are a handful of different modes in this as well. There actually is a handwriting mode if that is something that's beneficial to anyone that you're working with. So the handwriting mode, where we've actually heard some anecdotes from some teachers where essentially some of their students prefer, some students who are having a little bit of trouble learning how to handwrite as well as type at the same time and drawing that connection of what the words are in handwritten version versus typed. And they're doing some exercises with the handwriting mode to be able to draw that parallel, because basically when you handwrite, essentially the auto completion will still happen in typed text. So you can kind of see what you're handwriting, see if it's working properly, and then choose the written text at the top that appears. So that's the on-screen keyboard. And I will mention there's also there is a dictation button in the on-screen keyboard as well if you are using the on-screen keyboard and want to use voice to supplement some of that input. We also have a feature called automatic clicks, and this feature is much more so intended for anyone for whom it's maybe not possible to put physical pressure on the touchpad or on a connected mouse to physically click. So with automatic clicks, you're able to essentially just hover over a given item, and then the Chromebook will click for you. So the way that this works is a little interface appears when you turn the feature on, and you can choose whether you're going to right click, left click, click and drag, double click, even scroll content. And this is all done by hovering, and you can customize the amount of time before click if there's not a great deal of precision that you have. There are a number of different ways to kind of customize how the feature works, but that's really there just to be able to help support those users who maybe aren't able to put as much physical pressure on the touchpad. Okay, there are a handful of other features you can customize within touchpad settings or keyboard settings as well. I'll just go through a few of these really briefly. I already talked on the touchpad side about automatic clicks, of course, but we also have tap to click and tap dragging. And tap to click just basically removes some of the need to really push down on the touchpad, just responds better to like a nice light tap on the touchpad. And tap dragging goes hand in hand with that. Typically when we want to drag something around, if you want to rearrange your Chrome tabs or something like that, you have to kind of forcibly push down and then move. So tap dragging will just allow you to very lightly double tap and drag your finger. On the physical keyboard side, we have sticky keys, which is available essentially so that if it's not possible to hold down multiple keys at once to press a keyboard command, you can basically press them in succession instead of all at once. So this can be done for anything from turning on, pressing a keyboard shortcut to turn on features, or even just capitalizing a letter. Sticky keys will kind of remember what you pressed until you execute the full command. You can also adjust the keyboard repeat rate or the delay before repeating, especially if you're kind of holding down a finger a little bit too long and it's typing multiple letters at once. That's something that's easy to adjust. Okay, so next I'll shift gears a bit and talk about captions and making content easier to hear. And the first feature is called mono audio. And this is most useful for anyone who has limited hearing in one ear over another. And what it does is it basically will just play the same audio out of both earbuds or both speakers. So it's really streamlining the content so that you're not missing anything in stereo sound that's occurring. We also have a way to customize the look and feel of closed captions on video content that hasn't already customized the style of the captions. So for example, like Netflix customizes the look and feel of their captions. So this wouldn't apply to anything that has that customization already there. But with this, you can adjust the text color and the font and the size and anything else just to make it a little bit more visible to you and adhere to your preferences. So I also just wanted to mention that we do have a feature that was built and launched on Android called Live Transcribe. And it's available in the Android Play Store on your Android devices, but many Chromebooks actually do come with the ability to access the Play Store to be able to access Android apps. So if you are using a Chromebook that does have access to the Play Store, you would be able to access Live Transcribe as well. And what this does is it pulls up, it's an app that opens and essentially will real-time caption anything that is being said. So just wanted to mention this. It's an interesting tool to be able to access and works in many different languages as well. Okay, next I want to shift gears and talk more about spoken feedback. And there are two different versions of spoken feedback on Chromebooks. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is the ChromeVox screen reader. And this is the really kind of like full-fledged version of spoken feedback on the device. It's meant to be really comprehensive and provide a full audio experience as you navigate around the device. So you can turn this on through settings or through pressing Control-Alt-Z as in zebra at any time, even from the very first time you're booting up a device and setting it up with all of your user login details. And ChromeVox has come a very long way in the past few years. We actually have rebuilt it from the ground up over the past few years, listening to a lot of different user feedback. And essentially, it's a faster, more consistent experience. We've simplified keyboard shortcuts to make sure that you don't have to hold down as many keys at once. We have an optional Braille output along the top. So we've got at the very top of the screen, there is a speech panel, and essentially that will write in written text whatever is being spoken aloud. So for example, if you're working with somebody who's listening with headphones, you're going to be able to visually see as well whatever they're listening to. So you can use that in written text as well as optional Braille output. We've redesigned the set of navigational sounds, which we call earcons. And these are just like supplementary information. So for example, there are little sound effects that are added in behind when you get to like a button or when you get to a link or when a page is loading. And they're just really there to provide some additional cues. And we've redesigned those to be a bit shorter and more efficient, but also we've added stereo positioning. So if you navigate to a button, of course, you'll hear with the screen reader, you'll hear that it's a button and you'll hear hopefully what the button is for. But you'll also, if it's on the left side of the screen, this button, you'll hear that earcon in the left ear. Or if you get to a link that's on the right side of the screen, you'll hear that link earcon in the right earbud, which again just helps to give a little bit more of that visual information that otherwise isn't really provided through a screen reader. We also have a set of navigational menus that you can open at any time by pressing search plus period. And these menus will allow you to access, it's kind of like a one-stop shop of all things ChromeVox. And there's a whole list of different jump commands and speech commands. You can get to all your open tabs. You can get to a number of different ChromeVox related items like the opening up the tutorial or the keyboard learning mode, and then a bunch of other navigational lists. So the headings lists and links lists and more. And we also did just add the functionality to be able to search within the menus as well. So if you've essentially, there's quite a lot in here, and if you know what you're looking for and don't want to kind of scroll through all the different options, you can quickly do a search. So that's, again, meant to be your one-stop shop, just because we know, especially for folks who are either new to screen reading or new to ChromeVox, there's a lot to ramp up on in general when you're learning a new screen reader. So the goal is, remember just the basics, remember the way to get to that menu with search plus period, and then be able to learn more from there. ChromeVox also supports Braille displays, either through USB connection or through Bluetooth. And you can use Braille displays for, output of reading in Braille, as well as input with the Perkin-style Braille keyboards. We've also been adding a lot more Braille jump commands. If you are, using a Braille display and you want to be able to really spend more time on the Braille display versus jumping back and forth between the Chromebook keyboard and the Braille display. So we've added more and more keyboard commands that can be used through the Braille keyboard as well to jump your focus around the screen. Okay, so that's ChromeVox. And again, that's meant more so for individuals who are a bit more significantly low vision or visually impaired, who need more of that full system screen reading. We also have a feature called Select to Speak. And Select to Speak is meant a little bit more for like on-demand screen reading technology. This is the feature that I use most with my visual impairment, just because I still have a very small field of central vision available that allows me to kind of use the large mouse cursor, navigate around the screen, and basically choose what I want to be read aloud and then listen to that text. So that's how Select to Speak works, where you can, when you turn it on, there's an icon that appears in the lower right-hand corner that you can either click or tap if you've got a touchscreen Chromebook. And then you can just click and drag a box around content, and only that content will be read aloud at that point. You can also, there's word-by-word highlighting available as you read, and you can adjust the color of the highlight as it's reading in Select to Speak settings. So that can also help with the visual connection as you're listening to text. So we know that a lot of low vision users like me can benefit from this sort of spoken feedback, but also anyone who has any sort of learning or processing challenges. We work with a lot of users with dyslexia who benefit from this sort of functionality, and especially having that highlighted word by word context as you're reading, that can definitely help to draw that audio and visual connection a little bit closer. We are also coming out in the next few months with the ability to shade the background content. So when you select a certain area of the screen to be read aloud, there'll be a new option coming out soon of shading what's behind it just to promote better focus. So definitely stay tuned for that. We also have worked with, well, I'll back up. We have a lot of different voices that are available by default and a number of different languages as well. But we know that, sometimes users want more options to be able to choose the voice that works best for them. And especially when it comes to students in K12, we've seen a lot of research, especially from this group that we've worked with called Acapella, who is a third-party voice creator company. And the research has shown that essentially some of the younger learners definitely resonate better. The voices will resonate better with them if they're younger children sounding versus like more of an adult, more robotic sound. So Acapella, we've wanted to partner with Acapella a few years ago because they produce some really fantastic children's voices. And essentially, they've got a number of different languages, and they're only a few dollars each available. You can get them through the Chrome Web Store through Acapella. And I just wanted to mention this because, it really does provide a very different experience for much younger learners. And let me see it. I'm hoping you'll be able to hear this audio, but I'm going to play this right now just as an example of one of the children's voices using Select to Speak.
The itsy bitsy spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. The itsy bitsy spider climbed up the spout again.
All right, so that's just one example. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the current set of features that are built into Chromebooks, and we do have a handful of additional features coming out soon. some of which I mentioned and some of which will be announced in the fall as well. And I wanted to shift gears a bit and talk about customizing Chromebooks with additional apps and extensions. And this list is by no means comprehensive. It is just something that I've basically been working with my team to be talking with lots of different special educators and technology trainers and just lots of different people on aggregating a list of things that they've found helpful. And this is just some of the ones that we've seen rise to the top. I would definitely be curious to hear from you all if you've got other ones that you'd say, oh, this has been really helpful, or oh, this one hasn't really been as useful. So please do feel free at the end. I'd love to hear. So this first category is around reducing clutter and distraction. And the first one is called Stay Focused. It's an extension that will allow you to help waste time and focus more. So it helps to limit the time that you spend on specific sites. And we've heard that it can be very helpful for students with ADHD. The next is Magic Scroll Web Reader. And there are a number of different extensions out there that do similar things to this one, but basically helps to remove clutter and allow you to focus more on the core content on the screen, or especially on articles, of like news articles or things like that. AdBlock Plus will strip away ads, again, helping to just increase focus on the core content. The next category is around increasing visibility and reducing eye strain. And Beeline Reader is a tool that we've heard a lot of really positive feedback about, particularly from students with dyslexia. And what this does is it essentially will help to color code blocks of text. And what that means is it'll take the end of one line of text in a paragraph and make it the same color as the beginning of the next line. So red will bleed into red, and then at the end of that line, blue will then bleed into blue on the beginning of the following line. And it just really helps your eyes to be able to better track where to go next. And they also have a dyslexic-friendly font and a few other features, but we've just heard a lot of really positive feedback about that one. We also have the Google Color Enhancer. This one just happens to have been built at Google a little while back, but the others haven't. They're all outside of Google. This one is meant for anyone who's colorblind and allows you to kind of choose what sort of color blindness that you have, and essentially will filter the colors on a page to improve your visibility. And then MagX is a very simple, straightforward app which will turn your Chromebook camera, which is on your Chromebook built in, and it turns it into a video magnifier. So this can also be used, of course, with an external camera that's plugged in, or a document reader, things like that. But I love this one just because it will help you to take, let's say you have a piece of paper that maybe is poor contrast or the font is too small. It will just allow you to use that camera and be able to hold it up and adjust the size and adjust the contrast level, the zoom level, and more. So I love that bridge between the physical world and the electronic world. Improving content interaction. So I've heard a lot of fantastic things about Read and Write and Co-Writer. So Read and Write by Text Help, really fantastic word prediction and a lot of text-to-speech functionality, which kind of has a similar feel to some of what I showed earlier of the built-in select-to-speak tool. They've got a similar sort of text-to-speech with word-by-word highlighting. They've got a picture dictionary and a handful of other functionality that works really nicely with the G Suite of applications. Co-Writer by Don Johnston. Again, we've heard a lot of really positive feedback about their word prediction and in particular their grammar and spelling support. And then Dualist is a very simple extension that's free and will essentially allow you to customize the window arrangement on your Chromebook. So let's just say, let's say that you had an assignment on one side, like with instructions, and then you had the actual assignment itself. So you wanted to pull the instructions up and be able to kind of be looking at both things at once. Essentially what this does is with one click will allow you to just choose the window arrangement. So you can say, okay, I want the instructions on the side, the left side for 1/3 of the screen, and the actual assignment on the right side for 2/3 of the screen. And then with one click, just switch it right back again. So this can just help to make that process a little bit easier, so you don't have to drag around the windows quite as much, or switch between tabs and lose focus. Okay, the last one in this section is Clicker Communicator, which is an AAC app for communication on Chromebooks. And this is really intended for anyone who is more so nonverbal or has more significant speech challenges and wants to be able to work with the device to verbalize content. So we partnered with Crick Software, and they've built this app, which is available through the Chrome Web Store. And it's a fantastic AAC app that's available with really good integration with Google Drive. It works offline as well as online, and it has built-in a cappella children's voices available. There's lots of different vocabulary sets, and they're highly customizable as well. So definitely would say if you're working with anyone who is an AAC user and is using Chromebooks, I would check out this one. Okay, so the next section is just around some of those anecdotes I mentioned before from some educators that we've worked with, just about how they're using G Suite apps in innovative ways. So the first one was from a teacher that was saying that she likes to do an exercise with her students of using Google Drive, and essentially it's kind of like the new virtual backpack. So she uses Drive and uses this backpack model to say, let's learn about organization and color coding and folder creation, naming conventions, just as you would organize your backpack, like let's organize your Drive. So she likes to do that exercise with her students at the beginning of each year. We also have, so there are lots of different ways that you can use Google Docs. I mentioned earlier that one thing that we're hearing a lot about is Google Docs voice typing, which will allow for, not only just dictation, but also editing through your voice and formatting through your voice commands. So that's one area that we've heard a lot about, where especially for students who are getting a little stuck or having a little bit of writer's block on getting going, a lot of people will just say, okay, just start speaking, just get the thoughts flowing and then go from there. But another story that I wanted to share with you all is I found this to be a really interesting anecdote from one of our teachers who said she was working with a student who had ADHD and basically had a lot of questions and couldn't focus until his questions were answered. So he was kind of disrupting the class pretty significantly, and they were thinking about pulling him out of the classroom and into a special education classroom. And they decided to try one more thing before they did that. And what they did was they set him up with a Google Doc on his Chromebook, and there was a teaching aide in the back of the classroom who also had that same Google Doc opened. And he was able to type out his questions anytime they came up, and she was able to immediately respond to them. And they were able to, the class was able to continue undisrupted. And what I love about this story is that, the teaching aide wasn't even sitting next to the student. She wasn't hovering over him or alienating him in any way. It was just a very simple transaction of, I have a question, I'm going to type it out and get an answer. So I really loved that, that sort of use of Google Docs through the real-time collaboration features. Okay, so slides. Of course, we think about slides when thinking about giving presentations like this one, giving lectures and lessons, things like that. But we've actually been hearing that some folks are using slides for assignments as well. So for example, we've heard about some stories of writing assignments and using slides to break out the different assignments. So let's say you had a lengthy assignment of writing an essay about your whatever it may be, your summer vacation. And for some folks, that might be a large task, don't really know where to get started. And we're hearing that some teachers will actually use slides as the prompts. So in a slide deck, they'll put in the header where, in the slide it says slides, they'll write the writing prompt of, okay, start off with 2 sentences about this. And then in the body of the slide, a student will be able to essentially write it out, whatever their draft is, teachers can use the speaker notes section to add any additional comments or resources. And then in the next slide, it'll be the next prompt and the next opportunity for the student to add their content. And by the end of it, it's an exercise of just being able to then pull it all together, and there you go, you've got an essay. So I really liked that framing of just using slides to kind of chunk out the different work for students to make it a little bit less intimidating. And then last, forms. So Google Forms are often used for things like surveys or quizzes, but we're actually hearing that a lot of schools are using forms to be able to collect data on how students are doing as well. So whether it's things that are being tracked in IEPs, or just things that certain teachers or parents or guardians know that they want to kind of track over time, they're able to use forms across a given student's set of teachers, and share those results with counselors or with the parents, and just be able to kind of have them time-stamped, which is a really nice way to kind of track and monitor that progress throughout a year or across multiple years. So with that, I'm going to wrap up and share some resources. So lots of resources on this slide, but we have our external facing accessibility site at Google, which is google.com/accessibility. And through that, you'll get to a lot of these different links, but one to call out is, we've got lots of different help centers. And if you go to any of our product help centers, like the Chromebook Help Center, you'll see an accessibility section. But we also have an aggregated help center, which is available at g.co/help/accessibility. And that's just all the different accessibility related articles from all the different product areas. So they're all kind of in one place. Let's see, we also have a YouTube playlist, which obviously if you just do a Google search for this will come up as well, but it's also linked from google.com/accessibility. This playlist has a lot of different videos across products, but we've got about 21 right now from Chrome and Chrome OS accessibility, if you want to dive deeper into any of the subjects from today. The Chrome Web Store is where you would go to add these different extensions I was talking about in the later half of the presentation. So definitely check that out. There's also an accessibility category in the Chrome Web Store if you're curious to see a few more. I won't go through all of these right now, but let's see, communication. We have a few different Google groups. So if you're interested in joining these community groups, I would definitely recommend, we've got the Chromebook-accessibility group. So if you just go to groups.google.com and search for these, that's a great one. If you have questions or feedback and just want to engage with our team, we're there and we're happy to kind of engage and talk through anything. We also have a ChromeVox specific one if you're curious about that. I did also want to mention that aside from the community groups, we also have it's a disability support team of agents who are available to answer questions. So you can reach out to disability-support@google.com or learn more at g.co/disability support. That website will give you lots of different information about how to reach out through chat, through Be My Eyes with an ASL interpreter. So again, that's g.co/disability support. And then I also included my email address if you have questions or any feedback. Our team is always looking for feedback. So lpalmero@google.com is my email address. So I'm going to hop out of present mode. Okay. And I would love to take any questions. Let's see, Jessica, can you hear me? Or it looks like you're muted, Jessica.
So Laura, we have one question at the moment. Are the community groups monitored by staff or are they peer-to-peer conversations?
Great question. It's both. I would say the community groups are a little bit more community driven, although I'm on the groups, so members of the team are definitely on the groups. But it is kind of a place for community members to be able to talk as well. So we'll often see other folks from the community chiming in with answers or similar questions. The disability support team is a little bit different in the sense of it's more of that one-on-one engagement with a support agent. So depends on what you're looking for. Yep.
Okay. If anybody has other questions, if you'd either put them in the chat or in the Q&A, Laura would be happy to answer
Definitely.
them.
Or if you have other tools that you're using that you find helpful, or any requests or feedback that you'd like me to take down, I'm very happy to.
We got a question, or more of a comment, it looks like, from Jennifer. Thank you for MagX. It's critical for senior users, especially to see the text that is less than 7-point size.
Yes, definitely.
Have you had, when the teachers start out using these Chromebooks and such, are they given like a full slew of training, and do they have any, I guess, best practices in terms of working with the different types of students that are experiencing various disabilities to be able to focus carefully on their specific needs?
That's a great question. We're working on different sets of trainings, and we've been working a lot with the Google for Education team on how to get more consistent trainings out there to all the different teachers. So right now it's a little bit more like I'd actually love to hear from you all if there are places where we should be plugging in. You know, we've been doing a lot of different presentations at conferences, and we've got the video series and things like that, different materials like that. But be curious how you might recommend for us to be able to reach more teachers more consistently. Because we do hear the feedback a lot that many teachers are not aware of all the different options available. And I know teachers have so much on their plates and there's so much going on. So it doesn't surprise me that, you know, we need to do, as a team, we need to continue to do a better job of just getting the word out and making it easy to learn more and more about these different tools. So yeah, if there are any suggestions of forums or things like that, we're definitely open.
And that sort of answers, I believe, Sharon's question. She was saying that Chromebooks are used at Austin ISD, which is the local one here in, where Knowbility is, and was wondering how teachers are trained. So I think you pretty much covered that. And unless there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah. I mean, and I think with that, there's a lot of, again, there are lots of different resources available. I would also say feel free to reach out. Like if you ever have questions about your school or about anyone in your community, again, my contact information is just lpalmero@google.com. I'm happy to send over resources or help to try to answer some of those questions.
We'll get those links from you so we can send them out in the follow-up email message too, so everybody has those.
Definitely.
And another related question was about training for parents.
Yes. So for training for parents, actually, this was something that I actually should have included in that last slide. I'm sorry that I didn't, but there is a site that the Google for Education team has created for, you know, during teaching from home. So it's actually teachfromhome.com, I believe. So, and if you just do a Google search for Google Teach from Home, the site should come up as well. And on the Teach from Home site, essentially, there's lots of different resources for educators as well as for families. And on the families section, it's kind of split out by, you know, there's a whole family section. We did work to pull together a very comprehensive guide for parents and guardians about accessibility features across Chromebooks and G Suite and Android. Just knowing that, especially right now when parents have essentially had to shift into, you know, they've become the educators and the tech support and so much more during the pandemic. We know that a lot of parents might not be as familiar with all the different assistive technology tools, and maybe some of their children have been getting more hands-on support in the classroom. So this is it's about a 25-page guide, and it's kind of broken out by different sort of disability type or specific learning need. So for example, if your child has low vision or if your child is dyslexic, and we've written out a number of different tips and different tools to try. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at that if you're curious, and we'd love any feedback on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
And we can include that in the follow-up too, just to make sure that everybody has the right links. So, yeah.
Great. One person notes that there is an LMS, a learning management system at AISD, and wondering if the customization info could be somehow integrated there. That's probably a little bit more of a question for AISD of how to best do that. But have you encountered that with any other district?
I haven't, but I'd be curious to learn more as you're going through that process, because I think this is something that we're definitely interested in figuring out at a broader scale of how do we make sure that schools have all the right information. So feel free to, I'd love to stay in touch on that one.
Okay. Anna says you were talking about new ChromeVox features on Chromebook. Are there also some new features available for the Chrome browser version on other OSs?
Good question. So basically, we do have ChromeVox available as an extension for Windows and Mac and Linux. We essentially have that extension in maintenance mode at this point, and we're focusing all the efforts on ChromeVox on the Chromebook version. And the reason for that is just because we know most of our users who need a screen reading solution are going to need it system-wide and not just in a specific browser or application, things like that. So we've been working on the Chrome browser side. We work very closely with the operating system screen readers like JAWS and NVDA and Narrator on Windows, VoiceOver on Mac. And we're working very closely on helping to make Chrome better and better with all those different assistive tools versus having a separate Chrome specific extension. So that's where it's still there, because we know that we still have some users who are utilizing it. We're not going to take it away, but we're really focusing all future efforts on the Chromebook version.
Okay. Someone pointed us to the teachfromanywhere.google site. Are you familiar with that educational area?
Teach from anywhere.
Let me. Teachfromanywhere.google.
Okay, I'm more familiar with the Teach from Home. Let me pull this one up. So.
I'd be very similar.
Yeah.
It's got for teachers, for schools, and for families. I'll drop that into the chat for people who want to explore it further.
Wonderful.
And if there's any other questions.
Well, and I do.
I want to say, oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, I do hope this is helpful. And if more questions come up, please do feel free to reach out, as well as providing feedback of anything that, if you've tried a certain feature and you've got requests or feedback, like we really do want to know. So please do feel free to reach out in the future. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks. I want to say a huge thank you for being here and bringing this information to us and to everybody who attended. I know for myself, I learned quite a few pieces of accessibility tools for the Chromebook.
Awesome.
And again, we'll share those links for the resources for everybody, and as well as we'll be asking for some feedback and such too for everybody who wants to share, either on the info that Laura provided or anything else that we're doing with our Toolkit Tuesdays. We thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Laura, for the information that you provided. And we have a couple more sessions. Next week is on Microsoft accessibility tools. So information will be coming to your emails about that very shortly, within the next day or so. Thank you again.
Thank you all. Take care.